The bathroom door had been locked for over an hour. He sat on the edge of their bed, listening to the familiar sounds that had become strangers over the past few months. The hairdryer's persistent hum, the clink of makeup bottles, the soft rustle of fabric. These were sounds from another lifetime, from when she used to get ready for their anniversary dinners, for his company parties, for moments that belonged to them. He glanced at his watch. 6:15. She'd told him she had dinner plans with her college friend Sarah, the one who'd supposedly been going through a divorce. How convenient, he'd thought at the time, that Sarah's crisis had created such a perfect cover story. Sarah, who according to his brief phone call yesterday, was happily married and currently on vacation in Greece with her husband of 15 years. The lock clicked open. She emerged in a cloud of perfume, not her usual scent, but something new, something expensive. The red dress hugged her figure in ways that made his chest tighten, not with desire, but with the bitter recognition of effort expended for someone else. It was the dress from their 5th anniversary, the one she'd sworn would never fit again after their second child. Apparently, motivation worked wonders. "Wow," he said softly, keeping his voice neutral. "You look beautiful." She startled slightly, as if she'd forgotten he existed. Her cheeks flushed, with guilt or excitement, he couldn't tell anymore. "Oh, thank you. Sarah wanted to go somewhere nice. You know how she is." Sarah, who was currently posting sunset photos from Santorini on social media. "Where are you two going?" he asked, standing to straighten his own collar. He'd dressed carefully too, though she hadn't noticed. She never noticed him anymore. Just that new Italian place downtown. Giovanni's, I think. Her eyes wouldn't meet his. They darted to her phone instead, which had buzzed 3 times in the last minute. Each buzz made her face light up in ways he hadn't seen in years. "Giovanni's is nice," he said. "I tried to get us a reservation there last month for our anniversary, remember? They were booked solid." She fumbled with her clutch, that nervous laugh bubbling up. "Well, Sarah made the reservation weeks ago. She's been planning this for a while." How thoughtful of her. He moved toward the dresser, adjusting his cufflinks with deliberate slowness. "What time is your reservation?" 7:30. Another buzz. Another quick glance at the screen, another smile she tried to hide. "You should probably leave soon then. Traffic on Friday nights, you know." She nodded, already moving toward the door, her mind clearly elsewhere. In the doorway, she paused, and for a moment, just a fraction of a second, something flickered across her face. Doubt? Guilt? The ghost of the woman who used to kiss him goodbye? "Don't wait up," she said. "Sarah's been really struggling. We might be out late." "Of course. Take your time. I hope Sarah feels better." The words tasted like ash. He watched from the bedroom window as she practically floated to her car, her fingers flying across her phone screen. She was texting while walking, something she always lectured their teenage daughter about. The car pulled away, and he counted to 60 before moving. His own car was already packed. His lawyer's number was already dialed. The reservation at Giovanni's, the one he'd made 3 weeks ago under his name, after the private investigator had confirmed what his gut had been screaming for months, was waiting. He picked up the manila folder from his nightstand. Inside were photographs, phone records, hotel receipts. Evidence of a double life lived in plain sight. Evidence that would make the divorce proceedings straightforward, that would protect his children, that would give him the closure he needed. He allowed himself one last look around their bedroom. 17 years of marriage, reduced to furniture and memories. The bed where they'd talked about dreams. The corner where they'd assembled the crib. The window seat where she used to read on Sunday mornings. That woman was gone. In her place was a stranger in a red dress, rushing toward what she thought was a romantic evening. He grabbed his keys and headed for the door. It was time to introduce her to reality. The city lights blurred past her windshield as she drove, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. At every red light, she checked her phone, reading and rereading the messages that made her feel alive again. "Can't wait to see you in that dress. Our table is ready whenever you are. You're going to love what I have planned. 17 years. That's how long she'd been a wife, a mother, a woman whose identity had slowly dissolved into everyone else's needs. When had she last felt this butterfly-inducing anticipation? When had her husband last looked at her with anything beyond polite indifference? She pushed away the guilt that tried to surface. He didn't notice her anymore. He came home, ate dinner, watched television, went to bed. Their conversations had become logistics: who would pick up the dry cleaning, whether the furnace needed servicing, what time their son's soccer game started. They were roommates with a shared history, nothing more. At least, that's what she'd convinced herself 3 months ago when she'd met him at the coffee shop. The man who actually listened when she talked. Who remembered the small details she mentioned. Who made her feel seen. Her phone buzzed again. She grabbed it at the next stoplight, expecting another message from him. Instead, it was her daughter. "Mom, where did you put my blue sweater?" The ordinary intrusion of real life into her fantasy. She typed back quickly. "Check the laundry room. Be home late. Leftovers in fridge." Another message, this time from her husband. "Drive safely." 2 words. That's all he could manage. 2 words that felt more like obligation than care. She tossed the phone onto the passenger seat, focusing on the road and the promise of an evening where someone would actually want to know about her day, her thoughts, her dreams. Giovanni's appeared ahead, its warm lights spilling onto the sidewalk. She'd driven past it 100 times but never been inside. Too expensive, her husband always said. Too much trouble getting a reservation. Funny how those obstacles disappeared when someone actually wanted to make an effort. She pulled into the parking garage, checking her makeup one final time in the rearview mirror. The red dress still fit perfectly. The new perfume, the one she'd hidden in her gym bag, smelled like jasmine and possibility. Her hair fell in soft waves she'd spent an hour perfecting. For a moment, doubt crept in. What was she doing? She had a family, a home, a life. But then she remembered the emptiness, the loneliness of lying next to someone who felt miles away. She remembered the last time her husband had really kissed her, not the perfunctory peck goodbye but a real kiss. She couldn't. She grabbed her clutch and stepped out of the car, her heels clicking against the concrete. The elevator ride to the street level felt both too long and too short. Her reflection in the polished doors showed a woman she barely recognized, confident, desired, alive. The restaurant's entrance glowed ahead. Through the windows, she could see couples leaning toward each other, candlelight dancing across their faces. Soon, she'd be one of them. Soon, she'd remember what it felt like to be wanted. She pushed through the door, and the hostess greeted her with a professional smile. "Good evening. Do you have a reservation?" "Yes, it should be under," she paused, realizing she didn't know what name he'd used. They'd always been so careful about details. "Actually, I'm meeting someone. He should already be here." "Of course. What name, please?" She gave his name, the one that appeared on her phone screen dozens of times each day, the one that made her pulse quicken. The hostess's smile faltered slightly as she scanned her list. "I'm sorry, I don't see that name. Could it be under another name perhaps?" Her stomach dropped. Had he gotten the time wrong? The day? No, they'd confirmed just an hour ago. She pulled out her phone, ready to text him, when the hostess spoke again. "Miss? There's a gentleman at table 12 who seems to be waiting for someone. Perhaps." Relief flooded through her. Of course. He'd probably used a different name for privacy. Smart. Careful. She followed the hostess through the restaurant, weaving between tables, her anticipation building with each step. Table 12 sat in a quiet corner, partially obscured by a decorative screen. Perfect for an intimate dinner. Perfect for not being seen. The hostess stepped aside with a gesture. "Here you are." She moved around the screen, her smile ready, her heart full of expectation. Then the world tilted. The man at the table was her husband. Time seemed to fragment, each second stretching into uncomfortable eternity. He sat there, perfectly composed in the charcoal suit she'd helped him pick out for their wedding anniversary 3 years ago. The anniversary dinner she'd cancelled, claiming a migraine. The candle on the table cast shadows across his face, making it impossible to read his expression. "Please, sit down," he said quietly, gesturing to the chair across from him. Her mind raced through possibilities like shuffling cards. This was coincidence. He was here for a business dinner. He'd somehow gotten the restaurant wrong. Anything but the truth that was slowly crystallizing in her chest like ice. "What are you doing here?" The words came out sharper than she intended, defensive rather than curious. "I have a reservation. Giovanni's. 7:30. I believe that's what you told me, isn't it? Though you said you were meeting Sarah." He paused, took a sip of water. "Sarah sends her regards from Greece, by the way. I spoke with her husband yesterday. They're having a wonderful time." The ice in her chest spread to her limbs. She gripped the back of the chair to steady herself. "I don't understand." "Don't you? Sit down. Please." It wasn't a request this time. She sat, because her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. The restaurant continued its gentle hum around them, laughter from nearby tables, the soft clink of silverware, a piano playing somewhere in the background. Normal sounds in a moment that had become surreal. He reached beneath the table and withdrew a manila folder. The kind lawyers used. The kind that changed lives. "I've known for 3 months," he said conversationally, as if discussing the weather. "The late-night texting. The new clothes hidden in your gym bag. The sudden interest in working out 4 times a week at a gym that, curiously, has no record of your membership." She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The red dress that had felt so empowering 20 minutes ago now felt like evidence, like a costume for a role she'd been caught playing. "His name is Daniel, right? The district manager for that consulting firm downtown. You met him at the coffee shop near your sister's house. He's divorced, has a daughter in college, drives a BMW." He recited the facts like reading a grocery list. "He thinks you're separated from me. That we're just waiting for the kids to adjust before filing papers. Creative story. How did you?" "A private investigator. Excellent credentials, very discreet." He opened the folder, and she saw photographs. Her and Daniel at the coffee shop. Getting into his car. Walking into a hotel. Evidence of every moment she'd thought was secret, laid bare under restaurant lighting. Tears burned her eyes, but she blinked them back. "If you knew, why didn't you say anything?" For the first time, emotion cracked through his calm facade. "I wanted to be wrong. Every day, I hoped I'd wake up and find some other explanation. That maybe you really had joined a gym. That maybe Sarah really was going through something. That maybe the woman I married was still there, just lost, and if I waited patiently enough, she'd find her way back. You stopped noticing me years ago," she whispered, the defense feeling hollow even as she spoke it. I stopped. He leaned forward, and she saw something dangerous in his eyes. Not anger, but something worse. Disappointment. "I planned a weekend away for our anniversary. You said you were too tired. I bought tickets to that Broadway show you mentioned wanting to see. You said you couldn't find a sitter. I learned to cook Thai food because you said you missed that restaurant from when we were dating. You ate 3 bites and said you weren't hungry." Each statement landed like a blow. She remembered those moments differently, through the lens of her own neglect and resentment. But hearing them now, she saw the pattern she'd refused to acknowledge. "I became invisible," he continued, "because you decided I was. And instead of talking to me, instead of fighting for us, you decided to audition for a different life with someone who doesn't know that you hate doing dishes, or that you cry at dog food commercials, or that you have a birthmark on your left shoulder blade shaped like Ohio. So what is this?" She gestured at the table, the folder, the setup. Revenge? Humiliation? Clarity? He slid a document across the table. "Divorce papers. Already filed. I'm citing irreconcilable differences and fault-based grounds. I have evidence of adultery, which in our state affects asset distribution and alimony. My lawyer says it's a fairly straightforward case." The words hit her like physical blows. Divorce. Fault. Evidence. The life she'd been trying to escape suddenly became the life she was losing. The kids. Are with my mother. They know we're having dinner together. They don't know yet that it's our last. His voice finally broke slightly. I'll tell them tomorrow. I've already consulted with a child psychologist about the best approach. Of course he had. While she'd been lost in fantasy, he'd been planning their future. Their separate futures. I loved you, she said, the past tense slipping out unintentionally. I know. I loved you too. Maybe that's why this hurts so much. He stood, leaving the folder on the table. The reservation is in my name. You're welcome to stay and order whatever you'd like. Or you can leave. Your choice. Where are you going? Home. To pack some things and go to my mother's. My lawyer will be in touch Monday about custody arrangements and property division. We can try to keep this civil for the children's sake, or we can make it ugly. Also your choice. She sat frozen in her chair, watching him weave through the tables toward the exit. Part of her wanted to run after him, to beg, to explain. But explain what? That she'd felt lonely? That she'd wanted to feel special again? Those reasons felt like tissue paper now, flimsy and transparent. The waiter approached cautiously, clearly sensing the tension. Would you like to see a menu? She looked down at the divorce papers, at the photographs of her secret life spread across the white tablecloth. No. Thank you. I'm leaving. She gathered the papers, they were hers now, part of her new reality, and stuffed them into her clutch. The photographs she left on the table. Let the waiter wonder. Let the whole restaurant wonder. Shame was a small price to pay for what she'd done. Her phone buzzed as she rushed toward the parking garage. Daniel. Where are you? I've been waiting at the hotel bar. The hotel. She'd forgotten entirely about the lie within the lie. She'd told Daniel she was working late tonight, that they'd meet at their usual place at 8. She'd planned to have dinner with her husband's money, in her husband's reservation, before sneaking away to another man's bed. The audacity of it made her sick. She typed back, "We need to talk. Not tonight. I'll call you tomorrow." His response came immediately. Is everything okay? You're scaring me. Nothing was okay. Nothing would be okay for a very long time. Instead of answering, she blocked his number. Clean break. Scorched earth. It felt both cowardly and necessary. In her car, she sat gripping the steering wheel, unable to turn the key. Where would she go? Not home, he'd said he was going there to pack. Not to her mother's, the judgment would be unbearable. Not to her sisters, she'd have to explain, and explaining meant admitting what she'd become. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. Mrs. Morrison. A woman's voice, professional and crisp. She almost said yes before remembering that name might not be hers much longer. This is she. This is Catherine Chen from Morrison and Associates. I'm your husband's attorney. He asked me to reach out regarding temporary arrangements while the divorce proceedings move forward. Of course. He'd thought of everything. While she'd been selecting lingerie and perfecting her lies, he'd been consulting lawyers and documenting evidence. I'm driving, she said, which was technically true, though the car wasn't moving. Of course. I can call back at a better time. However, your husband wanted me to inform you that he'll be staying at his mother's for the foreseeable future. You're welcome to remain in the marital home with the children. He'll collect his things tomorrow afternoon while you and the children are at your son's soccer game. The soccer game. He'd remembered their son's soccer game while planning his exit from their marriage. He also wanted me to convey that his primary concern is the children's well-being. He's hoping we can establish a cordial co-parenting relationship and avoid unnecessary conflict. Cordial. Co-parenting. Terms from a future she hadn't imagined that morning. What do I need to do? Her voice sounded hollow, unfamiliar. For now, nothing. I'll send over the formal documents early next week. You'll have time to retain your own counsel. I'd recommend doing so sooner rather than later, given the complexity of asset division and custody arrangements. After the attorney hung up, she finally started the car. Muscle memory took over, driving her through familiar streets toward the house that would soon be divided up in legal documents. The house where she'd raised her children, celebrated birthdays, decorated for Christmas, lived a life that now felt like someone else's memory. The lights were off when she pulled into the driveway. He'd already come and gone. She sat in the darkness, unable to face the emptiness inside. Her phone buzzed again. This time, her daughter. "Mom, Dad called and said you'd be home late. Can I sleep over at Jessica's?" Normal. Routine. The machinery of their family life continuing while its foundation crumbled. "Sure, honey. Have fun. Love you. Love you too." Simple words, exchanged 1,000 times. But tonight they felt heavy with meaning. Her daughter still loved her. For now. Before she knew what her mother had done. Before the family she knew dissolved into custody schedules and separate Christmases. She finally went inside. The house felt different, though nothing had physically changed. In the kitchen, she found a note on the counter in his handwriting. "I fed the dog. There's leftover chicken in the fridge. I'll be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. for my things. Please be out." Even now, even in this, he was thoughtful. Feeding the dog. Making sure she knew there was food. Planning his return for a time when she wouldn't be there, sparing them both the awkwardness. She crumpled the note and then smoothed it out again. Evidence of consideration, even in ending. Upstairs, she stripped off the red dress and hung it in the back of the closet. She'd never wear it again. Couldn't. It had become a costume for the worst version of herself. In the bathroom mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. The makeup that had seemed so perfect earlier now looked garish. The carefully styled hair seemed ridiculous. She'd dressed up for a date with excitement and anticipation, never imagining she'd come home to an empty house and divorce papers. She washed her face, watching the makeup swirl down the drain. If only guilt and regret could be washed away so easily. Her phone sat silent on the counter. No messages from Daniel, he'd probably figured out he was blocked. No messages from her husband. What else was there to say? The children were settled for the night, unaware that their world was about to fracture. She climbed into bed, still wearing her slip, too exhausted to find pajamas. The sheets smelled like the fabric softener she'd used for years, a scent that meant home and routine and everything she'd taken for granted. Tomorrow, she'd have to tell her children. Tomorrow, she'd have to call her mother, her sister, her friends. Tomorrow, she'd have to find a lawyer and begin untangling 17 years of shared life. But tonight, she lay in the darkness and finally let herself cry. Sunlight through the bedroom curtains woke her, harsh and unforgiving. For one blissful moment, she forgot. Then memory came crashing back, the restaurant, the folder, the photographs, the divorce papers crumpled in her clutch downstairs. Her phone showed 9:47 a.m. She'd slept late, something she never did. The house was silent in that particular weekend morning way, empty but full of presence. Her son was at a friend's house. Her daughter at her sleepover. She was alone with the wreckage of her choices. In the kitchen, she made coffee by rote, her hands knowing the ritual even as her mind spun. The normalcy of it felt obscene. How could coffee taste the same when everything had changed? Her phone buzzed. Her sister. "Hey, want to grab lunch today? Haven't seen you in forever." Forever. 2 weeks, actually. But it felt like a lifetime ago when she'd had lunch with her sister and lied about how happy she was, how busy life was, how everything was fine. She stared at the message. This was it, the beginning of telling people, of making it real. Once she told her sister, the news would spread. Her mother would know by evening. Friends would hear by Monday. The whispers would start, the judgment, that "I always thought something was off" comments. Before she could second-guess herself, she typed, "Can you come here instead? I need to talk to you about something." The response was immediate. "That sounds serious. Are you okay?" "No. But I will be. Can you come around 11? On my way." She had an hour to prepare. To figure out how to say the words "my marriage is over, and it's my fault" out loud. To practice holding herself together when all she wanted was to dissolve into tears and denial. She showered, washing away yesterday's perfume, Yesterday's hope, yesterday's delusions. The water couldn't cleanse guilt, but it helped her feel slightly more human. In her closet, she avoided the red dress, choosing instead old jeans and a sweater. Comfortable. Safe. The clothes of a woman hiding rather than a woman dressing to impress. At 10:58, her sister's car pulled into the driveway. She watched from the window as Sarah, actual Sarah, not the fictional one she'd used as a cover story, grabbed her purse and hurried to the door. "Okay, you're freaking me out," Sarah said the moment she entered. "Are you sick? Are the kids okay? Is it?" She stopped, finally taking in her sister's appearance. The unwashed hair, the red eyes, the defeated posture. What happened? They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where the family had eaten breakfast together just yesterday morning. A lifetime ago. "He's divorcing me." The words came out flat, factual. Sarah's eyes widened. What? Why? What did he? Not him. Me. I had an affair. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah, her outspoken, never at a loss for words sister, simply stared. For 3 months, she continued, the confessions spilling out like poison she needed to purge. I met someone. I convinced myself I was unhappy, that he didn't care about me anymore, that I deserved to feel special. I lied to everyone. I used your name as a cover story, actually. I told him I was meeting you last night. But you weren't. No. I was meeting the other man. Except when I got to the restaurant, my husband was there instead. With divorce papers. He'd known for months. Had me followed. Documented everything. Sarah reached across the table, grabbed her hand. Oh, honey. Those 2 words, not judgment, not anger, just sympathy, broke something inside her. The tears came then, ugly and desperate, months of guilt and fear and regret pouring out. I destroyed everything, she sobbed. Our family, our life, the kids' stability. And for what? For feeling special for a few weeks? For someone who didn't even really know me? Sarah let her cry, holding her hand, not offering empty platitudes or false hope. When the tears finally subsided, she spoke carefully. What do you need right now? Practically, I mean. A lawyer. A plan. A way to tell the kids that their mother is the reason their family is breaking apart. We'll figure it out. One step at a time. Sarah pulled out her phone. My friend Monica is a divorce attorney. She's tough but fair. I'll call her, see if she can see you Monday. While Sarah made the call, she looked around the kitchen. In a few months, this might not be her kitchen anymore. The house might be sold, divided, transformed from a home into an asset to be liquidated. Monica can see you Monday at 10, Sarah said, hanging up. In the meantime, have you thought about what you'll say to the kids? She hadn't. Couldn't. How do you tell your children that you broke their family because you were selfish? He said he'd help, she admitted. That we could tell them together, try to keep it civil. That's something. He's a good man. I know. The words hurt. That's what makes it worse. At 2 p.m., as promised, his car pulled into the driveway. She'd taken the children to the soccer game as Catherine Chen had suggested, allowing him privacy to collect his things. But she found herself driving back early, parking down the street, watching. He made 3 trips, carrying boxes and suitcases to his car. 17 years, reduced to cargo. On his last trip, he paused at the doorway, looking back at the house. Even from a distance, she could see the weight in his shoulders, the exhaustion in his posture. He'd loved her. Maybe still did, in some broken, unsalvageable way. And she'd taken that love and shredded it for the illusion of excitement. When his car disappeared around the corner, she drove home. Inside, the house felt both emptier and lighter. His toothbrush was gone from the bathroom. His reading glasses no longer sat on his nightstand. His presence had been extracted carefully, leaving gaps that would take time to fill or learn to live with. That evening, the children came home to a mother who'd cried herself hollow and a father who'd moved out. They sat them down together, a united front for one last crucial moment, and told them in careful, age-appropriate language that sometimes people change, that love isn't always enough, that this wasn't their fault. Her daughter cried. Her son went silent, processing. They both had questions she couldn't answer honestly. Why? When? Could they fix it? This is what's best, her husband said, his voice gentle but firm. Your mother and I both love you very much. That will never change. But we need to live separately for a while. A while. As if this were temporary. As if there were any coming back from betrayal. After he left, hugging the children, squeezing her shoulder in what might have been forgiveness or just exhaustion, she tucked the kids into bed and sat in the quiet house. Her phone buzzed. An email from Catherine Chen with attachments, temporary custody arrangements, financial disclosures, procedural timelines. The machinery of divorce, grinding forward. She opened a new document on her laptop and began typing. Dear Daniel, by the time you read this, you'll have figured out that I'm not who I said I was. I'm not separated. I wasn't planning to leave my husband. I was just a coward who destroyed her family because she was too afraid to face her own unhappiness honestly. I'm sorry I lied to you. I'm sorry I used you as an escape from my real life. I hope you find someone worthy of the attention you showed me. Please don't contact me again. She sent it before she could reconsider, then blocked his email too. Clean break. Scorched earth. The house settled around her, the creaking floors, the humming refrigerator, the ticking clock. Familiar sounds that would become the soundtrack of her new life. Single mother. Divorcée. The woman who'd had it all and thrown it away. But somewhere in the wreckage, a small voice whispered that maybe, eventually, she could become something else too, honest. Self-aware. Someone who'd learned that running from problems only creates new ones. It would take time. Years. Probably. Therapy. Hard conversations. Moments of crushing regret and slow, painful growth. She climbed into bed, her bed now, singular, and pulled the covers close. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, lawyers and paperwork, difficult conversations, and harder truths. But tonight, for the first time in months, she didn't reach for her phone to text someone who wasn't her husband. She didn't scroll through messages that made her feel alive at the expense of her integrity. Tonight, she simply existed with her choices and their consequences. And maybe, she thought as sleep finally came, that was the first small step toward becoming someone she could live with. The red dress still hung in the back of her closet, a reminder of the woman she'd been for one terrible, transformative night. She'd donate it eventually, or burn it, or simply let it hang there as a monument to the cost of illusions. But that was a decision for another day. Tonight, she'd survived the first day of the rest of her life. And tomorrow, she'd wake up and survive another.